Hey there. So whenever I do a modification to my R8, or any car for that matter, the first thing I do is I go out on YouTube and I look for a video, or look for a tutorial on a forum to see if someone else has done it first, and it also keeps me from making mistakes. So I wanted to install my new STM Tuned intake tubes and K&N filters on my Gen2 R8 Spyder. And I went out to YouTube, and sure enough, there's no video out there that kind of steps somebody through that. So I thought I'd make one myself as I went through it, and if I make any mistakes, maybe you can learn from it at the same time. So I wanted to say really quickly, at the beginning of this video, I said I was going to go through this journey with you, and I'll probably make mistakes, and we need to make mistakes together. And all reality is I did make some mistakes. And I corrected those mistakes. So it is very, very important that you watch this in video in its entirety, and don't follow along step by step and then pause the video, because then you'll end up making the same mistakes I did. So watch the video through once first, and then go and do it on your own. That way you know what not to do as I do things wrong. So just wanted to make that point. Hopefully this is useful for you, and you enjoy the video. Thank you. This is my Spyder. And the tubes that I will be installing on this video are right here. They're made by STM Tuned. They're called smooth tubes by some people that describe them, and these are K&N filters on top. I'll leave a link at the bottom of this so that you can go buy them or find them yourself. So the first thing, we need to be able to lift the engine cover up. So we'll get in the car here. Alright, so you might notice I've got red footwell lights, some bling on the steering wheel that I installed, things like that. So first thing I'm going to do, now there is a maintenance mode that you can put the car in that will automatically put the engine cover in a place that you can work on the engine and remove the engine cover. But for this particular operation, I want to leave the convertible top down, and I essentially want to move the top in a position that makes sense. And for me, it's about right there. So we'll get out here and look, see about where the top is. And you can actually see inside here, those are the intake tubes. Now once you have the top where you want it, reach behind the seat and pull this little button here, and then that will release the user serviceable part of the engine and just lift that up. And what that does is that reveals enough of these tubes and also the air boxes where you don't actually have to remove anything major to gain access and work on and install these filters. Okay, remember when I said that we would learn things together? Well, we're going to do that right now. If you do not put the top or the engine cover in service mode, eventually it'll try to lower itself. And so what I've done here to keep it from going down is I just took a piece of wood. I actually stuffed a wash rag down there to protect any surfaces, and very, very carefully propped the wood underneath the cover, the carbon fiber cover. So when it tries to go down, it actually won't close. So that takes care of that. Also, I would highly recommend grabbing some old towels and putting towels around the area that you work, because you will inevitably drop a screw. And the last thing you want to do is drop a screw inside of the engine bay of an R8, as there are covers everywhere, and the whole bottom of the car is covered in panels, and it's relatively impossible to remove a screw. What I will do at the bottom of this video is I'll put some part numbers for these T20 screws that hold the air assembly on, in case you do lose one. I did do some research, and I have that information. So to get started, we're going to do this together. These are the two air boxes where the air cleaners or the air filters are located inside of, and this is a Gen2 R8. The Gen 1 R8 has a single air box. The Gen 2 has two. So we're going to remove 6 screws. They are T20 Torx bit screws from each one of these to remove the cover. There's one here. There's one in the back. There's one in the back in the center. There's one in the back on the right. There's also one, if you can see it, down here. And then inside, let's see if I can move the camera in here, zoom out a little bit. Inside of here, you will find a screw right there. Now there's another screw that's near the top of this, but that's actually to hold the air filter in, the factory air filter, and we won't be using that screw once we replace it with the K&Ns. So 6 screws, and then this air filter cover will come off. Then we'll do the same with this air filter cover. And then once I'm done, I'll come back and we'll move on to the next step. Okay, a couple of things that I missed in the previous segment. Number one, when you open the user serviceable engine compartment, there's actually a cover here. You just need to pull up on the cover and pull it out. So this allows you to see the 2 distinct air boxes, and just make sure to safely store that away while you work on the car. The next thing I wanted to mention, the 2 tools that I used to remove the air boxes are these 2. Just a T20 long screwdriver style tool, and this is to allow you to get into this box. And then this is a ratchet. Also, I would recommend that you take some electrical tape and make sure that this T20 bit or tool or socket is very, very secure. You don't want that falling in the engine. One other thing that's very, very important, and I made this mistake before, these screws are designed to, as they are unscrewed, you'll see them get loose. If you keep unscrewing them, they'll eventually come out. You don't need to do that. Just unscrew them until you feel them get loose and stop, and they will keep themselves snug inside of this cover so they don't fall out. So once you remove all 6 or loosen all 6 screws, this entire box will pop off. And then all you'll need to do on this side piece, I used 2 screwdrivers. It's kind of a clamping mechanism, and you can pop this off here. You can pop this off here and kind of rotate this off to the side while you work on the filter underneath. And then that's the filter underneath. So let me go ahead and remove these clips, move this off to the side, and then we'll proceed from there. Okay, there's one other thing that I had to do that I didn't know I would have to do, and that's remove one more of these little clamps. Here's a close-up of the clamp, so you can kind of see what you need to do. I just used 2 screwdrivers, put one on each side, and then gently remove the clamp. But I had to remove this one here so that I could rotate this cover out of the way. So once the cover is out of the way, see if we can get this camera in here. There's one screw right here that you will need to remove. It's a T20. This is the actual filter element, the stock filter element. This is the cover, and underneath is the actual filter. So it's kind of got a pre-filter and a filter. Then, let me see if we can bring the camera back around. Let's see. Don't know if we can see in there. But inside of here is a mass airflow sensor. Right. Good grief. Oh, there we go. Right there. There are 2 T20s that you will need to remove. They are 220 safety bolts. So safety just means they have a kind of a rod in the middle, and you have to actually use a T20 bit that has a hole in it. An example of what one of those looks like is right here. You see the hole in the middle? So you need one of these to remove that mass airflow sensor. Then once you remove that mass airflow sensor, then let me zoom in here, you will remove this clamp, and then you will be able to pull this air filter element out of the car. So pretty simple. So we're going to go ahead and do that, and I will be right back. Okay, as you can see, I got this air filter out of here. I did learn something new though, and here's what I learned. Do not try to remove the mass airflow sensor before removing the filter, and I'll tell you why. Now, I didn't lose a screw, but the screws are this small, and you don't have enough room when it's installed, when it's actually in the car, to put your fingers around it and remove it safely without dropping it. So all you have to do, if I can get the camera in here again, this is the connector. You push on this bottom little indentation, and then pull it off. It's really, really simple. Once you pull it off, you can loosen this clamp, and then once you have, of course, you had this bolt out previously, and then rotate the filter and just pull it out. And you'll also find this kind of stuff in the bottom of your airbox. It's absolutely filthy. And this is the, let me zoom out a little bit here, and this is the air filter once it's been removed. And now I can go ahead and remove this mass airflow sensor. Okay, I'll be back in a second. So I've removed the filter. I've also removed the mass airflow sensor. I've cleaned the airbox out. It was filthy, using my trusty portable vacuum cleaner. I also wanted to make the point here that there is no right and left filter. They are all the same. So this is the factory filter with the sensor removed. I simply just put it into this filter. Just know that you can't get right and left mixed up, so that might give you some confidence there. So the next step, we need to remove this intake tube, and there's really two things left before that tube comes out. So let me rotate over here. You can see back here there is a clamp. It is a one-time use clamp. You will need to use some pliers and a screwdriver and remove that clamp, and then it gets thrown away. And then loosen this clamp here, and then you will be able to take this tube and then pull it off of the throttle body here, and then replace it with the replacement smooth high performance tube. So I'm about to do that right now, and I'll be right back. So I finally got this one-time use clamp off. It was a booger. So I tried different mechanisms to do it. I used some dikes, I used screwdrivers, but what ultimately ended up doing it are these tin snips. So I was able to remove let me go and zoom here a little bit. I removed this inner clamp and I pulled the tube off, and then I rotated it sideways so that the top of this clamp was facing me, and I'm in the back of the car here. And then I use the tin snips to cut the top of the clamp, and now I'll be able to pull it off and then pull this out. So this probably is the most difficult part of this install thus far, is removing that one-time use clamp. Now what replaces it, it comes with the STM Tuned intakes, or a standard clamp that uses a flathead screwdriver. So you'll only have to do this one time, but it is a bear. So wanted to make you aware of what I did to get this off finally. Okay, the first air filter and intake tube has been fully installed. I have to say it's not as easy as I thought it would be. Actually, I've been at it for 30 minutes. And here's why. If you look at the original tube and then the aftermarket tube, the original tube is very flexible, and you can actually see there's a curve in it. Also, the original tube is a little bit shorter than the aftermarket tube. And what that does during install, you can actually see here, you can see there's a curve. The throttle body is not completely lined up with a hole in the airbox, so there has to be a curve in that tube. So this rigid tube is kind of cockeyed, so it doesn't give me a whole lot of confidence, but there's been thousands of these things installed, so I'm just going to have a lot of faith that it's going to work. But when you try to get this in, you have to, on the opposite end, leave that loose, and then you will want to push the air, or the filter into the tube, and then push the tube into the back, and then you'll want to kind of use some force to push it against the throttle body, and then line up the slots here. And it does take some work, but it does work. It did fit, and I was able to tighten it down. Also, there's a lip in here. The factory filter has a groove, and it's a pain to get this over that lip while you're trying to push it against the throttle body at the same time. It will work. It just takes some time and some patience. I had to take a quick break because I got frustrated. But here's the final install prior to putting this cover back on. I'll let you see. There's the rear clamp, and then there's the clamp in there for the side of the tube. So full install. I'm not going to do a review when I get all of these done. There's tons of reviews out there about, you know, the increased auto response. You get a few extra horsepower, a little bit of extra intake sound. I'm not going to bother you with all of that. I just wanted to kind of guide you through some of the install challenges that I've had. So hopefully you won't have to go through the same issues that I went through. Hey, here's a quick addendum. So after I put everything together, I actually screwed up and I forgot to plug in my mass airflow sensor connector. And so when I started my car, it went into limp mode, and then after that it did not stay. I could start it and it would immediately shut off. So of course I was freaking out. So I got my scan tool, I plugged it in, and sure enough, all these errors, I had 10 error codes, including mass airflow sensor errors. So I cleared all the codes, and then the car now runs fine. So just FYI, do not start your car without plugging in the mass airflow sensor connectors, or you will have to clear the codes, apparently, with a scan tool. So if you have a scan tool, it's no big deal. If you don't have a scan tool, this could be a pretty significant event for you. So just wanted to give you that heads up. Please leave some comments and below. Let me know if this is helpful for you, and if you have any additional information for further viewers that might be able to help them with this install or something different. That'll be great. So take care.